The Swedish fire torch, simple in its construction, beckons storytellers to explore its fiery inspiration. This torch isn't just an ingenious fire-making technique, it's a symbol of resourcefulness and creativity, steeped in history. In this episode, we'll explain the art of crafting this extraordinary fire, from traditional methods to modern twists. You'll learn how long it burns, its versatile uses in multiple scenarios, and how it can ignite fascinating plots in your fiction. Whether it's gripping wilderness thrillers, a post-apocalyptic tale, or anything in between, let's spark your imagination with the fiery potential of the Swedish fire torch. Welcome to Writing Rule with Allie, the Fiction Writer's weekly inspiration station for real life and lifestyles, from historical to post-apocalyptic, helping you bring your role stories to life. I'm Allie, and this is episode number 105, Blazing Tales, Crafting Stories with the Swedish Fire Torch. Stick around to the end to find out all the ways things could possibly go wrong in your story. One quick thing before we get started. I will not be uploading next week, but I should be back the week after. Now, let's get into this. The Swedish fire torch is also known as the Canadian candle, the single log fire, and some people in the bushcrafting community call it the wooden rocket stove. Or, if you're part of my smart aleck teen years, fire in the hole! This is a fire that's contained inside a single log and used for cooking and heating. Bonus is that it keeps the fire off the ground. It is said to have originated during the 30 Years' War, from 1618 to 1648. At that time, soldiers needed to cook and heat without using large amounts of wood, since there is only so much wood, and an army would be using a lot more than a single person or even a family. Do I personally believe that this is the first time that it was ever used by mankind? No, but I do believe it's the first time it was made popular enough to be written about in history, and was likely something a family could have passed down for generations until others picked it up during the war. Do I know that for sure? No, that's just my guess, and I will explain why as we go. What is the Swedish fire torch? The simple answer is that it is made by taking a single log and hollowing out the center along with making a way to get air flow so that a fire can be started in the center. The long answer is that it's complicated and can be done in many ways. Let's cover some of the ways. At least here in the US, I have often seen people use an axe or a shingle froe to split the log into 4 pieces. That would be cut in half both ways. Then, about 1/3 of the way from the bottom, there will be a small, maybe 1/2 inch to 1 inch carved out of the inside of all the way up to the top. Think of it like this. The round logs have been made into 4 triangles, and the tip of each triangle will be cut off 2/3 the way down the log. This will be done to all logs, and then the logs will be placed back together, and a hole will be in the middle of the log. But not all the way through. This is so that the fire will stay off the ground. It is then held together with something to keep the logs from falling. I have seen metal wire and even large rocks used. Just something that will not burn, or at least not burn very quickly. Other things that I have seen people do is to drill a hole in the center and then cut 2/3 of the way down with a chainsaw. It's definitely faster and leaves a lot more room for airflow, meaning it will burn faster and your character will have a harder time controlling the rate of burn for the log. The rocket stove method is done by drilling out the center 2/3 of the way down and then drilling an air intake into the side of the log that connects to the bottom of the hole in the center of the log. To me, it looks like a Dakota fire pit, but in wood instead of the ground. In all of these, kindling is used to start the fire inside the log. Kindling being tiny pieces of wood or other flammable materials. If your character is smart, they've kept the parts that they drilled out of the center and will use them to start the fire. If they have split the log into pieces, they can place small twigs between the log pieces to let more airflow in, if the fire needs it. Remember, a little at a time is better than huge amounts. One quick important note about logs in general that will make a difference in this case is that many logs are not cut flat, but instead have angles. This works great for steep or maybe even hilly areas. It does not work well for flat areas. Your character will either need to adapt to the terrain or will need to be intentional when cutting the logs to begin with. Should your character not do these, or it is not an option, they risk having the log fall over, spilling the coals inside, and if they're cooking, spilling their food. If you heard my fire episodes, you will know that they are looking for dry wood, so wood that is not on a tree and has had time to lose the water content inside. In historical or post-apocalyptic stories, these will either be cut the year before to have time to dry out, or they will be looking for fallen tree limbs. In most cases, fallen tree limbs are what people use in rural life. 25 acres of forest was more than enough for us to have winter heat just by cleaning up the fallen tree limbs from the forest after storms. However, that's with a wood stove, and we're talking a Swedish fire torch. Now, I hear you. But Ellie, how long do they burn? Great question. It depends on a couple of things. First is the type of wood that your character is burning. Softwood will ignite easily and burn faster. Hardwoods are a little harder to light, but burn longer. The general rule of thumb to tell the two different types apart are to remember that softwoods are conifers and evergreens, while hardwood are the trees that lose their leaves every winter. Are there exceptions to this rule? Yes, a couple, but not many. So, if you're using wood and you're not sure about it in your story, look it up. Second is the circumference of the log. There are 3 sizes to this, and I will give you an average burn time, but remember, this is an approximate time, and the type of wood should be taken into consideration. Small size torches. These have a diameter of 6 to 10 inches and typically burn 1 to 2 hours. These are best for boiling water and for short-term heat. Medium-sized torches. These have a diameter of 10 to 14 inches and typically burn between 2 and 4 hours. They're best for cooking, but can be used for warmth and even a little bit of light. Large-sized torches. These have a diameter of 14 to 21 or more inches and typically burn for 4 to 6 hours. This time can be extended some by using hardwood and a larger log. They are best for group cooking and put off the most heat, but most importantly, the heat lasts longer. Now, one of the most compelling things about this method of fire is that it can be done even when everything is wet. Let me be clear, I do not mean waterlogged. I mean if it has rained or snowed. These are normally still good to use. The reason being is that while the outside of the wood is wet, the inside is not. And that is where your character is starting the fire. To top that off, since the fire goes 2/3 of the way down, it is not in contact with the wet ground. I know many homeless who use this method when it has been raining. I've also met poor families that have used this to cook with, which is one of the reasons I can say that I can easily see this being used by a family or others before the 30-Year War. There were nomadic people back then that this would have worked amazingly for, especially if they did not want to leave more traces that they had been somewhere than they had to, as nomads were not always thought of well then. I can also see a poor family doing this just to get by and stretch what little they have. I'm not saying that these are historical facts, but only historical possibilities. Now, you have heard me say a few times that they are good for cooking and boiling water with. There is one thing that you do need to know. Your character will need to place small, flattish rocks on top of the log in at least 3 places so that they have something to place their cooking or boiling utensils on. This should leave a small gap for airflow. Okay, it might look like smoke flow, but the smoke is in the air. I suddenly feel like I should sing that to the Frank Sinatra Spring is in the Air tune. Now, let's cover the pros and cons. Pros! Perfect for rainy or wet weather. Not waterlogged. It works like a stove burner for cooking and boiling water. It's quick and easy for people moving quickly, such as soldiers. Warming up. It's perfect for 1 or 2 people to warm up around, or to stay warm and stave off hypothermia. Survival. It's perfect when survival supplies are low, and they need heat or to boil water. Morale booster. Warm drinks or even just warmth can be a great morale booster in stressful situations, especially when people are cold. Uses minimal resources, helping your character to stretch what they have. Cons. Group heating. It's not able to warm large groups of people. It only lasts for a few hours. This is more pointed when there are no more logs, or very few. Dense smoke. Softwood puts off a lot of smoke and can cause breathing issues for people, and can make the food taste very smoky. Can tip over. Can't be transported or be used, and your characters are limited on the ways that they can cook. Now, these are clearly great for historical, post-apocalyptic, survival, and even camping stories. There are other ways this can be used too. It can be cozy and intimate and perfect for romantic backyard marshmallow roasts. It's also a great way to impress a camping date. It can be used in suspense as a way for either the good guys or the bad guys to spot the other in the forest at night, or in the day if there's enough smoke, or if they're close enough to smell the smoke. Remember, on open land, campfire light can be seen for 20 to 30 miles at night. In the forest, in ideal conditions at night, campfires can be seen for a couple of miles. However, it is usually less. But smoke can be smelled for up to a mile, even in the forest. If you want to add a little mystery, there could be something hidden inside of the torch that somebody else has made. Or, if they made the torch themselves, someone could have slipped something into it when they weren't looking. Fun fact! If large rocks are used to hold the torch together, these will act like fire bricks once they have been heated, and will put off more heat and stay warm even after the fire dies out. The downside is that it can get hot enough to burn if it is accidentally touched. One quick reminder before we get into all the ways things could possibly go wrong in your story. To help others find this content, pop on over to Apple Podcasts or whatever podcasting platform you're listening on and leave me a review. Or, if you're watching on YouTube, drop me a comment and say hello or ask a question. And this is the best way to help others find my content, and I love to hear from you guys. And now for everyone's favorite part. What could possibly go wrong in your story? Likely to go wrong. Your character gets a huge splinter making the Swedish fire torch. Also likely to go wrong. Your character is using the fire torch, and it's not as straight as it should be. As it burns, it starts to lean more and soon tips over. Possible to go wrong. Your character doesn't know how to use airflow for the Swedish fire torch. They let so much air in that the torch burns far more quickly than it had to. Also possible to go wrong. Your character has a little experience with fire and puts so much kindling into the torch that it suffocates the fire. Also possible to go wrong. Your character accidentally bumps into the log while cooking. Their food lands in the dirt. Unlikely to go wrong. Your character is allergic to smoke and didn't know it. Their throat soon starts to close. Also unlikely to go wrong. Your character accidentally knocks the torch over when they're cooking. It splashes on them, burning your character. It would be even worse if it's something that is not easy to remove from the skin. Improbable, but still technically in the realm of possibilities. Your character got a splinter making the Swedish fire torch, and it festers, becoming infected. Also improbable, but still technically in the realm of possibilities. Your character leans too far over the fire and catches their hair on fire. They are left with severe burns on their head and face. Thanks for listening. Until next time, happy wordsmithing!